Hey everybody, how's it going? Thanks for joining me this afternoon. I've got a great stream with a great guest that I think you're really going to enjoy. Before we begin, I just want to remind you that the way that we keep the lights on here is by having subscriptions to Blaze TV. If you'd like to support the show and everything that is going on here, you want to get access to all of the episodes, even those that have been taken down by YouTube, and you want to get all the behind the scenes content that comes with all your favorite Blaze TV hosts, you need to head to blazetv.com/Auron to get $20 off your subscription today. That's blazetv.com/Auron. All right, guys. So we are continuing to discuss the ongoing events surrounding Charlie Kirk's assassination. Obviously, this is the most important story going on right now and could be one of the most important stories of our lifetimes. I think that's not really an overstatement at all. And so I really think that it is worth keeping an eye on what is going on and the different developments. One of the things that I was surprised about yesterday is when the inevitable announcement, one I think we all knew was coming, that the motivation behind the shooting was very likely connected to trans ideology, that the alleged assassin in question, had been living with a trans woman and was obviously very sympathetic to the attitudes that many trans people have towards Charlie Kirk and his opposition to trans ideology. That really made it clear, I think, ultimately, that this is now one of many shootings that has been inspired by the obsession with trans ideology, and this is driving people towards violence. They're being radicalized online in places like Discord around this. So we're going to be talking around the trans angle here and why this is so important in this crime. I also want to discuss announcements we got from JD Vance and Stephen Miller on what we're going to be doing in response to this. They both came out with very strong statements, which I was very heartened to see. I think everyone was waiting for that strong statement saying, we will do something. This is not both sides. There is real repercussions coming, and we finally got it. So we're going to be talking about all that. Joining me today to discuss this is Kevin Dolan. He is the head of the Exit Group. Kevin, thank you so much for coming on, man.
Great to be here, man. Thank you.
Absolutely. We're going to dive into this issue, but before we do, let's hear from Share the Arrows. You know, we spend a lot of time here talking about what's going on in culture and politics, the battles, the noise, the craziness. But here's something different. If you're a woman listening right now, or if there's a woman in your life that you care about, you need to hear this. It's called Share the Arrows, and it's happening on October 11th in Dallas, Texas. It's hosted by Blaze TV's own Allie Beth Stuckey, and it's designed to encourage, equip, and speak truth into the lives of women who are trying to stand firm in this world. This is a day full of worship, teaching, and real conversations. So if you're a woman who's been craving encouragement and biblical truth, this is for you. And if you're a husband or a dad or a brother listening, think about your wife, daughter, or sister who needs this. In a culture that's constantly pulling in the wrong direction, this is a chance to stop, reset, and get grounded in biblical truth. Tickets and details are at sharethearrows.com. And yes, VIP options are still available. That's sharethearrows.com. All right, Kevin, before we dive into the new revelations and the implications that trans ideology and its effect on terrorism has for the wider American body politic, I wanted to play this video from Sam Hyde. A lot of people, of course, think of Sam Hyde as a comedian, and of course he is. But in these moments, Sam also has very important insights. And this is a longer video. It's about 2 minutes, but I think it's just worth playing in its totality because it is so powerful. The things said are so important. And I think it's just well worth listening to. So we're going to play that real quick.
This is you. This is your sister, your wife, your daughter. But this right here is you. This is your sister, your wife, your daughter. This is you. This is your sister, your wife, your daughter. But this is you. And this is their reaction when you are killed. This is the joy they feel when your sister is raped, when your children are castrated, brainwashed to hate you. This is their ecstasy when the floor of the subway car is awash in your blood. This is you. Make no mistake, that is a symbol, that is you. But this won't last long. They can't help themselves because they're so ugly and so low that the only joy they can experience, the only good that they can envision, is to take something beautiful or innocent down to their level. And when they can't do it, the next best thing is blood. This is Charlie's family, and these are his children who will never be able to hug their dad and grow up with a murdered father. And these are the people who smugly revel in this, and they won't stop with just Charlie. The boats are burned. There's nobody coming to help. The barbarians are at the gate. This is the fall of ancient Rome that we are living through currently. And what happens in the next 2 weeks is going to determine the future of mankind. That's not hyperbole. That's just how it is.
So, very powerful statement from Sam Hyde here. I think just cutting to the core of why this impacts people so deeply. We'll get on to Charlie and his qualities and why he was such an effective actor and all the other things that have, the praise that has been heaped upon him very correctly for his role as a father and as a role model and as a leader. But I think what Sam is hitting here and why these two events with the murder of Irina in North Carolina and then the murder of Charlie Kirk, the reason these things back to back are so powerful is there's no way you can't see yourself in these, especially in the murder of Charlie Kirk. He held the politics of your grandfather, of your dad, of your uncle. He is the kind of guy who feels like you could have been on the football team with him, that he could leave, be down the street and lead the Boy Scout troop. That's who Charlie Kirk feels like to the average person. And the fact that so many people are now celebrating his death and clearly wishing for more is, I think, the reason that this has cut everybody to their core.
Absolutely. It's all of the there's like 5 bullet points, right, that all of the leftists are saying, like, this is why he had it coming. And every single one of those, you can see how they are contextualized. There's a great thread somebody posted, like, here's what he's actually saying in all of these bullet points. And some of them he was just completely misquoted to say the opposite of what he was saying. But he was up against fundamental factual questions that about which there can be no compromise. The trans issue being obviously the most salient in terms of who killed him and why. And the reason I bring that up is to say that much of how he is being praised, at which I agree with the spirit of it, but it is sort of painting us into this corner, which is to say that, like, what makes us better than our enemies is that we don't fight, we talk. All we do is talk. We're all about dialogue. Charlie was all about dialogue. And that, I feel, misrepresents his work. And when you are in our position and the truth is the only advantage you have, failing to completely tell the truth is always a strategic error. Because Charlie was, yes, I think he hoped to persuade every single person he talked to. He wanted to come to a peaceful accord with everyone. He wanted to untangle the knot for people and help them see. But he was also one of the most effective political organizers of our generation. And he didn't get that way by waiting for 100% consensus. He didn't get that way by expecting or needing to convince absolutely everyone. He wanted to get Trump elected. He wanted to get mass deportations. He wanted to get all these things that are still hotly hotly contested. Because I think Charlie also recognized that many of these questions are irreducible, irreconcilable. We just have to win. And I think that his assassination is showing us the extent to which, because he framed every single one of these issues in the most sympathetic and the most universalizable way you possibly could. He was extending as much of an olive branch as you could possibly extend to people who have these beliefs about trans ideation, trans ideology, without compromising on the fundamental question, which is, this is not a real thing. And so he came up to the limits of dialogue, and he found those limits. And that's sort of where we are. We are at the limit of dialogue.
No, I think it's really important because, as you said, a lot of people are framing this as, well, Charlie Kirk, he only believed in free speech and he never believed in political power, or, it was all about the marketplace of ideas. But actually, if you look at Charlie Kirk, that's not the case. As you say, he was pushing on some third rails in the United States that were probably not just going to get solved by talking it out. I mean, this is a guy who literally was on Doug Wilson's podcast like a week before he was shot, talking about how the Civil Rights Act has to go. Yeah, that's right. It's not exactly squishy, middle of the road Mitt Romney rhetoric. All immigration, he said, legal and illegal, needs to be stopped. These are not positions that were acceptable to be spoken out loud 10 years ago in the Republican Party. And Charlie Kirk made it clear in one of his very last posts on Twitter that the left needed to be shut down, that its assassination culture, that its violence culture was an imminent threat to the people of the United States. So we don't have to guess about what Charlie Kirk would think about the plan to silence the people who are currently cheering for his death. I don't think we have to guess what Charlie Kirk believed about shutting down Antifa, shutting down BLM, shutting down the NGOs that are funding them. We do not have to guess about what he thought about this. What would his ideology tell him to do? What would his beliefs and principles lead him to? What would be the conclusion that he would draw? He told us, and his conclusion was the left needs to be shut down, that these terrorists need to be shut down, that these people need to be removed from polite society, and their ability to inflict violence on the body politic needs to end. And so I think it's a great point that, while I will continue to say that his manner, his way of going about persuasion and interacting with other people was far gentler and far more compassionate and far more in the spirit of debate and trying to convince people with words. Charlie was aware that there were limits to these strategies. And while he was pushing as hard as he could to resolve these issues in the manner that he thought was best, he was not unaware, and in fact had explicitly told people, on his Twitter account, that this was not going to be the only way that we had to deal with this problem.
Yeah, and the reason that you want to be maximally persuasive and to generate maximal consensus, you do, actually. And the reason that you want that is so that the implementation of the changes that need to be made, you're not going to wait for 100% consensus, but they can be orderly, they can be broadly understood, they can be legal and lawful, and they can be, performed by the legitimate authorities, which means that they can be so much more peaceful.
Yes.
In the broad sense. They will involve coercion, right? They will involve people being made to do things they don't want to do, like stop talking about murdering people, stop planning to murder people. Those people have to be stopped with force. But you can get maximum consensus so that is done in an orderly and a legal and a lawful way, which is what we are all hoping and praying comes out of this from the Trump administration, which is the will to make sure that all of this necessary work of putting these things down can be done under color of law and in a way that the body politic will accept.
And I really think that's the free the critical phrase there, under the color of law, right? That we are the side of order, we are the side of authority and hierarchy, and that means that we have a certain understanding about how we should go about this. It doesn't mean it shouldn't happen, but it needs to happen in a certain order so that people will accept its legitimacy. And that is the critical part here. And the worry was that that would not happen, right? That was the largest worry, is what happens if the civil magistrate does not recognize his duty to bring swift justice in this moment and the scope at which justice must be rendered, right? That is why I have, from the moment I heard about this, been advocating for a full send destruction of the leftist terror network at every level, but always under the color of law. The spiral of violence is something that I think is going to be completely devastating if it occurs. And the best way to avoid that is with a powerful response from the legitimate governing authority. So that said, we're going to get to the videos of Stephen Miller and JD Vance talking about how that needs to occur and how that will be done. But before we do, I wanted to talk about, of course, the trans issue. So we knew that anti-fascist ideology, Antifa ideology, was part of the motivation here. This was obviously scrawled on the bullets of this guy. He's wearing DSA t-shirts, member of the Democratic Socialist Party, or at least supporting the Democratic Socialist Party. This is a guy who was very obviously active in radical left-wing Discord groups. And we had a feeling that it was likely linked to trans ideology because Charlie Kirk had been so loud about that issue. And literally while he was being shot, he was discussing the issue of the dangers that came with trans people owning firearms, being allowed to operate in society, allowing this ideology to continue. But now we know that, in fact, the alleged assassin was living with a troon, and that was very likely a big part of why he was motivated to do what he was doing. Now, I made a post on Twitter about the concept of Tranissaries. Now, you and I are very online, so we know this terminology. I didn't coin this, but it bops around in certain circles. And the explanation of the Tranissary is the idea that this is the new age democratic left-wing janissary. For those who don't know, this is what the Safavids did to Christian children. They drafted them. Basically, first they were stolen. Some parents would surrender them, thinking that it would give them some kind of social benefit, if that sounds familiar, trans ideology for you. But a lot of them had their Christian children stolen and forcibly converted to Christianity, down to the actual castration, of these boys, to make sure that they could not, have children and would only be loyal to this ideology. And they became the elite soldiers of that Islamic caliphate. And so in many ways, the trans ideology does the same thing. It drives children away from their parents. Some parents will offer their children up as sacrifices to this ideology to receive the political benefits, but many of them have their children stolen by the courts or just by this ideology. Obviously, the children are their goal is to castrate themselves. They give themselves over completely to this ideology, and they have to, in order to validate this identity, live in a fantasy world. And that fantasy world is built entirely on hatred for other people. They need to kill Republicans. They need to kill conservatives because those people are coming for this new identity that defines their life. And so these people become the foot soldiers of the Democratic Party. And make no mistake, it is the Democratic Party they are a part of. They are the violent terrorist arm of the Democratic Party, and they are being bred on purpose for the reason of deploying them on the enemies of the left. And so I think it's just really critical that people understand that, yes, we need to go after all these other networks and everything, but also at the core of this problem is an ideology that is destroying the children of this country and has to come to an end. So it means we need to not just get rid of the funding and all this stuff. We need to ban trans surgery, or I should just say trans mutilation should be illegal across the United States. We can make a constitutional amendment. We don't, if we need to avoid any kind of legal restrictions or whatever, but this needs to happen, and it needs to happen now.
Yeah, the commonality that I see, and there was some question about was it an older fella, was it a trans person? We were a little bit surprised that it was a chaser. It wasn't somebody who was actually trans themselves
Sure.
currently. But the commonality I see is that the radicalized trans shooters and the radicalized, like the guy with the dyed hair who tried to shoot at Trump. A lot of these people are people who have made irreversible decisions in the light of this ideology, whether it's about mutilating themselves, mutilating a child, or just sort of getting to the end of the road of the progressive life path. And the only way that they can confront the horror of that is to sort of change what it means in retrospect. And that means that in a way, the upsetting of the consensus on trans issues, or the sort of relitigating of the liberal boomer hippie, worldview, relitigating that sort of destroys the whole meaning that they ascribed to their life, their sense that they were on the right side of history. And for the trans in particular, it's not only that, it's that they've made these irreversible. You can hear about trans moms and just the bloodthirst from these people about this issue with respect to J.K. Rowling or any of these other sort of outspoken anti-trans activists. It's because they can't confront what they've done. There's no confronting what they've done. And in this case, you can look at what needs to happen to a kid who, for whatever reason, tells their parents, I think I'm a girl. And it's like, either, like, if they're right, then failing to medically intervene is to consign this innocent child to a lifetime of alienation and suffering, right? And if they're wrong, then obviously to mutilate this child is this unbelievable crime, and it's similarly existential and irreversible. And this is, and now this gets to this question of dialogue. What is there to talk about with respect to this issue? It does not have any clinical etiology that you can point to. It doesn't have symptoms where you can say, that's what, we can confirm, or more importantly, disconfirm trans ideation based on, they don't act like a woman, or they don't dress a certain way, or like queer theory requires them to reject all of that. It's this completely invisible thing. And you can either believe that it's invisible but real, or invisible but fake. And so there's no factual debate to be had. And I want to contrast this idea of dialogue that is propounded by, Charlie Kirk, which was much more about like, let's prove that this is not accurate. Like, he did that. And Matt Walsh does something similar with What's a Woman. Like, he just dead to rights laid it out. Like, there's nothing here to argue about. There's no factual basis for this. You can't even argue about it without talking in circles. And that was good work and important work, but that's not going to convince these people, right? It's on the level of, we have to sacrifice our children to the sun or the sun won't rise, like the Aztecs. And if you've got, I read a 2022 Pew Research survey that was like 38% of people claim to believe that, your gender could not reflect your assignation at birth of your sex. And it's like, if you've got that many people who believe the equivalent of like, yeah, we have a moral duty to castrate children. Like, there's no modus vivendi. There's no way of compromising and living together on that basis. And that's what so many people find troubling about, like, for instance, Governor Spencer Cox's comments from Utah about these issues. It's like he's looking for a compromise, but the only way that you can Like, how could you possibly compromise on this and say like, well, some people can castrate their kids if they have this specific weird belief system, but you'd have to essentially like abolish the whole concept of child abuse. There's nothing else you could do to a kid that's more damaging.
Right.
And so it's like you can't argue on the facts. You can't come to some negotiated settlement. And so to bring it back to this, like, blood for the sun god thing, it's like you just have to defeat these people. You have to stop them. And then they have to see that the sun still comes up when we stop killing kids. And that's the only, that's the way to make peace. That's the only way it can happen.
I think that's exactly correct. And I think JD Vance agreed with you today. He was hosting the Charlie Kirk show, a very moving moment given how close he was to Charlie Kirk and what an incredible difficulty it is to fill that chair in a moment like this. But he said something that I think shuts down this both sides find a compromise thing that we're hearing from Spencer Cox and many others in this moment. We really need to come together. And JD Vance said, no, actually, there is no coming together until justice is done. There are positions we cannot allow in our society. There is no conversation with them. There is no discussion with them. There is only the destruction and defeat of them. So let me play that real quick.
Are these people violent? I hope not. But are they guilty of encouraging violence? You damn well better believe it. We can thank God that most Democrats don't share these attitudes, and I do, while acknowledging that something has gone very wrong with a lunatic fringe, a minority, but a growing and powerful minority on the far left. There is no unity with people who scream at children over their parents' politics. There is no unity with someone who lies about what Charlie Kirk said in order to excuse his murder. There is no unity with someone who harasses an innocent family the day after the father of that family lost a dear friend. There is no unity with the people who celebrate Charlie Kirk's assassination. And there is no unity with the people who fund these articles, who pay the salaries of these terrorist sympathizers, who argue that Charlie Kirk, a loving husband and father, deserved a shot to the neck because he spoke words with which they disagree. Are these people violent?
So again, JD Vance just laying out here for all the squishy Republicans calling for peace and unity that no, in fact, that is not the solution to this problem, that there is a line you cannot cross. And after that line is crossed, discussion is over and we need to fix this problem, which is, like you said, very important because so many, it's incredible. No matter how much violence is done in the United States. Look, I know, you've said this many times, and it's a great analogy. The GOP are Indian agents, for Red America, for conservatives. Their entire purpose is to mislead conservatives into believing they have political representation when they don't. And so for so long, you and I and everyone involved in the right has just been, completely incensed and had their eyes rolled to the back of their head when it came to any GOP representative talking, because they were all cowards and they were all liars and they were all soulless and they were all just complete scum. And we're seeing that with so many of them yet again, today, guys like Cox, but many others running to the microphone to say, oh, well, one more time, if I could just sell my constituents down the river one more time so that doctors can mutilate just a few more kids. Like, these people are absolutely soulless scum. So many of them. However, it is good to see that finally we have a few guys who know, at the very least, where we're at. Maybe they're not going to do everything that we think should be done, but at the very least, they are willing to say what needs to be said and address the problem. And I think that's just really critical because at this moment, again, without justice from the civil magistrate, violent retaliation will come. And you can't really blame them when there is no political solution. You need to provide political solutions. The job right now of the GOP is to provide that there is a real political solution to this problem. Because if there isn't, then we will be looking for not political solutions. And so I think it's critical in this moment that guys like JD Vance recognize the rhetoric is not about lowering the temperature. The rhetoric is about ending this terrorism once and for all.
Absolutely. I never thought that we would hear the kind of talk that we just heard from JD Vance in my lifetime. I don't think I could love that guy anymore. And it's and you know, it is awful that it had to come to this. But it seems clear that you know, Trump takes this personally. JD Vance takes this personally, and hopefully that generates change. I think. Go ahead.
No. By all means, please continue.
Well, I think that you're absolutely right that it is not about the choice is not between political conflict and political comedy at this point. The choice is between disorganized, amateurish, hideous political conflict and orderly, lawful. The people who have the power to make change here have such an opportunity. They have such an opportunity to correct this in a way that, I mean, like the tools that we have at our disposal that have been just used against the right for making jokes online for the last 15, 20 years. Those tools can solve this problem in a very peaceful, gentle way. Certainly relative to the alternatives.
Yeah.
But it's I don't think I actually don't believe that what's going to happen is that they're going to have their schizo shooters and we're going to get our own schizo shooters. I think the right, you've looked at the trajectory over the last decades. We've never identified, because there have been left-wing political candidates, left-wing public figures who have been targeted for violence, and you've never seen it. There is no equivalence. You have never seen just the mass of one political faction celebrate the way that and I'm not going to say that like every time these things happen that we all banded together with this maudlin contrition and we're so sorry for saying these things that led to this violence. We don't feel any connection to it because these are insane people. And they had an opportunity, I think, to do the same. They didn't have to love Charlie Kirk, but this celebration of his murder was just beyond the pale. And to think that it was, you could have prior to this been like, there's some crazies, there's always crazy, right? And that's what they tried to say. But they tell on themselves. They identify, and maybe they don't identify with like the specific, particular, weird thing that all these people are about, but they identify with the violence. The violence is good. We want the violence. And the reason I don't think that we're going to see that on the right is that only serves the faction of entropy. It only serves the faction of chaos. We don't have that nihilistic, self-destructive, spiteful streak in us. And you can see that in terms of like the people who they always bring up as like, well, these are the people that it's comparable to. They're people that most of us had never heard of. They're not like some big, antagonist to our politics the way Charlie Kirk was. It's nobodies. It's people who are often very like telegenic and innocent and did nothing wrong. And it's like, yeah, no, of course we don't identify with that. Why would we have anything to do with that? And I just think it's critical to point out that it's not tit for tat. It's not morally equivalent. We are not the same, and the same tactics are not going to be used.
Yeah, it's funny because, of course, that the left needs to both sides this thing, right? Like that's the first move is to oh, well, it's both sides doing this, both sides doing this. And I've seen them try to bring up, oh, well, Paul Pelosi was attacked by who? By a radical Republican? No. Josh
Right.
Shapiro was attacked by who? Oh, by a leftist terrorist, actually.
Right.
Melissa Hortman was killed. Okay, by a Tim Walz appointee, right? Like every one of these people that they're listing, oh, Democrats are taking, there's violence being done to them too. Yes, by other Democrats. The most dangerous thing in America to a Democratic politician is a Democratic radical terrorist, right? Like that's all of the. Now, of course, there has been right wing. There are actual examples of right wingers out there, but like you said, no one is jumping behind any of these people. No one is celebrating any of this stuff. Like
Right.
I didn't see a lot of people coming out and saying, well, Gabby Gifford, I didn't agree with her on everything, and she really set the tone, and you shouldn't have shot her, but really, at the end of the day, like, no, it was just like, no, this is terrible, and of course you shouldn't do this, and I don't need to give you a list of all the, 14 reasons why I shouldn't have done this, but I finally give you the one where I say, oh, well, okay, but it's bad. Like, you just know it's just bad, and that should be very simple. That condemnation should be very simple, and you can tell how the left is just incredibly not they don't feel bad about this at all. You look at some of the streamers like Hassan Piker and Destiny, and they're literally on their streams out there calling for the murder of Republicans. Even now, Destiny is live on his stream. No hesitation. These people don't expect any kind of consequence. They don't expect to be fired. They don't expect to be debanked. They don't expect to get deplatformed. They don't expect to get canceled. They don't expect to be harassed. None of it. None of it. They think they can get on there and literally openly call for the murder of their political opponents right after an assassination without any consequence. And it's not just the guys who are calling for the open violence. You look at someone like Crystal Ball, who's just a terrible human being, goes out and says, her first response, okay, killing Charlie Kirk is bad, but, right, like immediately just the but the thing that really matters is conservatives are scary. They're doing cancel culture. It's not the murder of the guy. It's not the children who had to watch their father get blown away in front of them. The real travesty is that some screeching blue-haired woman on TikTok might lose her job caring for children after cackling about the murder of her political opponent. Like, that's the real travesty. But you can literally find like 20 tweets and several interviews where Crystal Ball says exactly the same thing about Republicans. They should be beaten in the streets. They should be they should be canceled. They should be fired. They should be debanked. They should, there are Democrats, there are people who consider themselves on the left that do really decry this, that don't support it. I don't want to pretend like this is every single person on the left.
Right.
But don't make a mistake. The activist class, the leaders, the people, the media members, they might give you 10 seconds of, ooh, don't do this for now because we don't want any consequences for what we've been pushing for a decade. But let me tell you, every one of those people, they don't mean it for a second. Like they're on board with this, and they will be pushing it the minute they think they can.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And they've been doing it since Nixon, basically, which is our enemies are Nazis. Anything you do to a Nazi is morally permissible, but we deplore violence against our political enemies. And it's completely hypocritical. They are explicit. And the best you can say, the best argument you can make in their defense is that they're unserious about it. And they go, yeah, they're not really Nazis, but it's all in the game. And it's for getting suburban white women to come out and vote. But they've seen over and over and over again how people are connecting those dots. Like, they're not hard dots to connect.
Right.
These are Nazis. Anything is permissible against a Nazi. Therefore, they're counting on people who, don't have as much to lose and don't have as firm a grip on reality. If they condemned it after the fact, even then you could say, well, maybe they, it's just kayfabe. They're just trying to drum up votes. They don't mean it. But then when a schizo goes out and does it, they go, great. That was awesome. We love that.
The idea that the dots aren't meant to be connected, that it's all just rhetoric, that it's all kayfabe, it's just professional wrestling there for the rubes to get them. No, obviously not. You're exactly right. Like this is, you cannot let them get away with this. You cannot let them get away with, oh well, we're just doing this for the no. These people are ordering deaths. They're ordering deaths and they know it. And then that's the word fascist, the application of the word fascist, the charge of Nazism or fascism has to become akin to openly calling for the lynching of a black person. It has to carry that level of stigma. It has to destroy your reputation, destroy your employability. You can't be touched by a bank. Like, it needs to carry that level of social sanction, because in the United States and the wider Western world, Hitler and the Nazis have become the secular equivalent of Satan and demons. And you don't make deals with Satan, you slay demons. Like, that's it. These people, that when the left calls conservatives ontologically evil, they don't know what that means, but that is what it means, right? Like, that is what they actually mean, is that you are incapable of being a good person. You are inhuman. And by definition, the enemies of humanity must be slain by the pro-humans. Ironically, this was Carl Schmitt's point, right? Like that using that he who uses the term humanity is cheating. They are trying to make everyone believe that everything they do is righteous because they stand for humanity and you do not, and you are the enemy of humanity, and anything done by you is therefore evil and is justifiable to do anything to you to make it stop. That is the mentality, and that has to end. And Stephen Miller here, I'll play the clip from Stephen Miller real quick. He says the Trump administration is not screwing around on this one, which I was very heartened to see. This is, he's on Charlie Kirk show. He's talking to the vice president. This is a policy announcement, right? This is as good as a press conference where he announces this strategy. Let's play this real quick.
Which is that we need to have an organized strategy to go after the left-wing organizations that are promoting violence in this country. And I will write those words onto my heart and I will carry them out. If people ask me, what emotions I'm feeling right now, this is something people say. I mean, you kind of know the answer. There's incredible sadness, but there's incredible anger. And the thing about anger is that unfocused anger or blind rage is not a productive emotion.
Right.
But focused anger, righteous anger, directed for a just cause is one of the most important agents of change in human history.
Charlie showed that. Amen.
And we are going to channel all of the anger that we have over the organized campaign that led to this assassination to uproot and dismantle these terrorist networks. So let me explain a little bit what that means. So,
We've got 30 seconds, so be quick, Stephen.
The organized doxing campaigns, the organized riots, the organized street violence, the organized campaigns of dehumanization, vilification, posting people's addresses, combining that with messaging that's designed to trigger and incite violence, and the actual organized cells that carry out and facilitate the violence, it is a vast domestic terror movement. And with God as my witness, we are going to use every resource we have at the Department of Justice, Homeland Security, and throughout this government to identify, disrupt, dismantle, and destroy these networks and make America safe again for the American people. It will happen, and we will do it in Charlie's name.
Thank you, Stephen. Don't go.
So Stephen Miller here, that was they cut off a little bit at the beginning. He's responding to Charlie Kirk's posts, some of the last posts that he had on Twitter, the ones we mentioned, where he said, hey, the left wing is getting violent. They are creating these networks. We need to shut down these NGOs. We need to shut down this wider network. And he says, we are going after all these people. We're going after the Antifa networks, the BLM cells. We're going after the actual groups themselves and the people who are organizing them. But we're not just stopping there. We're going after the NGOs. We're going after the funders. We are chasing down every single lead we can on this. Now, obviously, we're going to have to see how this develops, and we'll continue to support this and demand it and call it out if it's not done. But this is exactly the kind of language that we needed to hear. I was afraid we weren't going to hear it, and I am relieved to hear that we have. This is exactly what we needed to hear. Again, the administration has made good on this. It's not just enough to promise. You have to deliver. But that said, at this point, this is as much as the administration can do rhetorically. I mean, this is what every one of us wanted them to say. We're not just going after the criminal, not just a few people who happen to be involved. We're going after all of it. The organizations, the cells, the connections, the money, every aspect of this. We are going to take it down. JD Vance comes in and says, no unity with these people. There's no peace without justice. We need to see this end. we are only going to be able to work with these people after they have completely renounced these ideologies. And so this is strong rhetoric from the Trump administration. This is exactly what we wanted to see, and then we want to see it executed, obviously.
Yeah, I mean Mike Cernovich made a really good point, which is that whoever the killer is, it doesn't matter. They're a patsy. Like they are part of an apparatus that justified and facilitated and sheltered and endorsed and subsidized these people and the people they work with and the people they learn from for as long as you and I have been alive. And to just target the like dozen weirdos in his group chat is nowhere near enough to address this problem. Yeah. Not even close. Not even close. The people who are responsible for this ultimately are the organized political left and the billionaires who fund them. That's where it comes from. The one opportunity we have that I think we'll close if we don't act fast is that all of these people have such expectation of impunity that they have been communicating openly about all of these intentions and all of like everything that we've been talking about all this time. They've been communicating openly about it in public, let alone in private. I mean, since forever. And assuming that we act vigorously to stop this, they're going to stop doing that. They're going to go underground. And so, I said last night, like we have to act against as much of this as we can possibly catch while it's still out in the open, because they're going to scurry, And so, it has to be vigorous. It has to be aggressive. It has to be quick. And frankly, I mean, it's going to be a test of the Trump administration's control over the intelligence and law enforcement bureaucracy. And that may be sort of where the house cleaning has to start. Yeah. They need to take a very close look at who knew about this person and when, who knew about other individuals who, like the assassin or the attempted assassin of Donald Trump. I said the other day, like, it's shocking that like we know more about each of the like 10,000 school teachers who shit talked Charlie Kirk last weekend than we know about that kid. And that like in his apartment being like wiped to a white glove finish, the day after the assassination, like that's crazy. Something's really rotten. And so, yeah, it is not just a handful of loonies, and it's not even just, a sick system throwing around these memes and then, a handful of crazies happen to pick it up. That's a tempting framing as well. But no, there are people with names and bank accounts and addresses who are directly responsible, and I hope the Trump administration holds them accountable.
Absolutely. And if they don't, then we will be holding them accountable. But for the moment, I want to say this is the rhetoric that we were hoping for. This is the approach we were hoping for. This is the strength that we were hoping for. So I want to praise them when they're doing the right thing and when we're seeing, a preparation, at least for the action that we're hoping to see. If it doesn't follow, then that will be its own problem and we will address it as such then. But right now, that's where the Trump administration is at. Charlie Kirk is very clearly one of, if not the main reason that JD Vance is the vice president right now. I don't think this one's coming off the radar, guys. Like, I don't think this one's coming off the radar for them. So that said, Kevin, we have quite a few questions from the audience. Before we pivot over to the questions of the people, is there anything you want people to check out? Now's a great time to be organizing. Where should they be organizing?
Yeah, so I run Exit Group, which is a fraternity for guys who are concerned about this and other values aligned issues. We did have an impromptu get together the day of the shooting. We've one of our guys hosted a vigil on the Capitol steps in Salt Lake. We're going to be doing some other things in the near future that if you want to learn more about that at blog.exitgroup.us, I'll be talking about those things. And yeah, I'm just encouraging everybody to get connected with everybody in Exit to get connected with their local chapter. Be around values aligned people who are sane and responsible and can help you contextualize all this. It's been an emotionally trying moment, and being able to get together with guys and talk and sort out things that are not wrong for you to say, that but would be unsafe for you to say, maybe around your family or around your office. Find people you can talk to, because I think it's, and I don't think anybody's going to do anything bad, but just for your own well-being and for your own peace, go to church, talk to your friends, and get your mind right on this.
Yeah, Jonathan Keeperman was on earlier, and he said, everyone is tuning out politically, in the sense that everyone is pulling away from the real world. They're not engaging, they're not grounding themselves, and I think that's critical right now. Exit is a great group. Of course, I'm always pitching the Old Glory Club as well. Just get yourself plugged in to these networks that are going to allow you to talk with guys who are values aligned, who have wisdom, who have roots in community, who have families, who have faith in God, and are going to be able to walk you through how to unpack this in real life, not just being angry on Twitter, not just yelling at people online or in Discord, or isolating yourself in a room somewhere like this guy did when he was driven towards the violence that he had. Get in community. We're not telling you, don't be angry, but be with people who are going to help you turn that anger into something that is going to benefit your community, change things, make a difference. Don't just be angry. Be angry in a direction that brings about positive change, connects you with your community, brings you closer to God. Like that, turn that energy towards these things, because that's the stuff that's going to allow you then to help when larger political efforts need to be made across the country, which might be coming with the administration. So I can only second that advice. All right, guys, let's go to the super chats here real quick. We've got Zolti here with just a very kind donation. Thank you very much. Appreciate that. Very generous of you. Wild Speaker says, put on the armor of God, Vice President's orders. Yeah, again, I am one of the things I am also heartened by, to be very clear. Obviously, GOP presidents will throw around, God, we believe in God, blah, 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 blah. Charlie Kirk was delivering a hot gospel to the people who needed it when he was at his events.
Yes.
So many times when he was talking, he was not just answering the question, he was immediately following up with, and you need to trust in, the Lord Jesus Christ as your savior. He was constantly drawing people to God. And I think that's inspiring many others, including Vice President Vance, to not just give the lip service to one nation under God or God bless America, but to make clear and explicit calls for spiritual renewal, joining of churches, the mending of families, salvation. These things are powerful, and they are part of the problem. Not just a part, a massive part of our issue is a spiritual sickness. And I am very glad to see so many people now strongly speaking in favor of fighting that as well.
Can I weigh in on that real quick?
Yeah. By all means.
People on the left and increasingly on the right are going to tell you that Christianity is quietism, and that the gospel-centered thing to do is to, lay down and take it. And go read the Gospels. Go read the words of Jesus. Go read the way he dealt with people with whom he disagreed, and go model that.
Chan the Man says, the Reddit psyop of the new motive is working. Shake my head. I mean, I don't really know what that means. Are you talking about them blaming it on Nick Fuentes or something? I think
it was like he's an irony accelerationist nihilist gamer who played.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, they were blaming the Groypers hate Trump, and so he was a Trump booster, and that's why they took him out. Yeah, they were trying that, honestly. So they did try that, and it will work for a certain percentage of their people. Like, they'll just buy in. There's nothing you can do about that. But I did see guys, even like Will Stancil, having to walk back his attempts to push this. So I don't know, man. It will look, there will always be a certain percentage of these people who will just parrot that no matter what. But I don't know that this is capturing the larger popular imagination.
Yeah.
Randall Shirker says, I'm still waiting for the Discord logs. Kirk was a victim of conspiracy, and it's only a matter of time until someone else gets hit by it. Yeah, to be clear, a couple things here. First, if it feels like this hit is a conspiracy, to be clear, it is. Like, if things don't add up, if it seems like one guy couldn't have pulled this off alone, he didn't. And we will find out more about that, guys. The reason it looks like a conspiracy is because it is. It's a criminal conspiracy to commit political terror. Like, very clearly, like that, there's no question there. Also, and thank you for bringing this up, Randall, because I forgot to say it when we were during the stream. Discord is complicit in this. Okay, Discord bans 100 right-wing group chats before breakfast. They monitor their platform relentlessly. Your dad is not safe there. They know what you are saying, and they ban right-wingers all day, every day over what they say in group chats. They know that leftist terrorists are organizing on Discord. They know. They know what they are saying, and they allowed this assassination. Discord is now criminally involved in the facilitation of the murder of Charlie Kirk. And the people involved should be severely, severely penalized.
And they report to the intelligence agencies, not just the U.S. intelligence agencies, the European intelligence agencies, and others. People knew, or if they didn't directly knew, they consciously and deliberately and selectively turned off surveillance. That's the only explanation.
Right. They know, hey, we are on these guys' teams, so if they're planning to murder people, better to have plausible deniability, right? They're going to shut down every single right-wing group chat, and they're going to allow every single left one. And oops, looks, all that stuff we were worried about the right doing, turns out the left was doing it because we were specifically allowing them to do it. They know what they're doing. They know exactly what they're doing.
That's the minimum level of complicity that I think is plausible.
Right. Yeah. If we're giving them the best and most charitable interpretation, it's that they were intentionally cultivating an environment where they knew leftists could plan a murder. That's the best outcome. I think it's probably far worse, but that's the best and most generous explanation. Randall again says, also, you can tell Charlie's views on various topics were evolving. It's a shame we won't get to see where he'd go in 5-10 years time. Yeah, again, many people have commented on this. We were talking about this with Jonathan a few episodes ago. But obviously, Charlie Kirk was a guy who was hiding his power levels, or not so much hiding his power levels, but a guy who was careful about his communications, thoughtful about his rhetoric. I know this makes a lot of people angry about Charlie Kirk, and I guess you could just be an adult, right? Like, I guess you could just be an adult. And it's not about being the edgiest boy; it's about being the most effective. And the reason they shot Charlie Kirk is he was effective. And that can burn your soul. You can get angry. You can get in all the group chats you want and yell, whatever. But guess what? Charlie Kirk is far more effective than you, and that's why they shot him. So he only was getting more wise and more right wing and more serious over time. He already was, but he was only getting more of those things. And so, yeah, no surprise. Like I said, the Charlie Kirk last few weeks had been, I heavily question Israel's involvement in these wars, and I really think that the Civil Rights Act is a mistake, and I really think we need to end all immigration, legal and illegal. We need to shut down all these left-wing networks. We need to go after left-wing terror. Like, this is not a guy who did not know what was going on. I'm sorry, that just doesn't make sense.
And he was the best positioned. He was the person in the highest sort of vantage, had the most ability to affect change, and he was saying things that all of us would say. And right. It's such a tragedy.
Tiny Rick says, I used to joke that Charlie Kirk was as left-wing as I got. The truth is he was the best of us. Godspeed. Again, so many of us, of course, feel this way. I've always had my position on Charlie Kirk was always doing good work. Wish he'd say a little more, or, wouldn't blog. But what are you going to do? Right. Like everyone's going to have, oh, this guy didn't have my exact position on one thing or another. Sam Hyde said in his video, someone might have had a disagreement with Charlie Kirk, but that's inside business, right? That's inside business. That is within our movement. This guy is a consul of Rome, right? Yeah. That's it. Yeah, that's all you need to know. At the end of the day,
he's Charlie and you're not.
That's right. Philosophical Thirstworm says it shouldn't just be leftists. You wouldn't believe the scale of Ukrainian refugees taking heads cheering this on. More Ryan Rouse coming probably. Yeah, I don't really understand the Ukrainian angle. I've seen people make that assertion. Honestly, from the people saying it, it seemed like a lot of people who just had partisan feelings about the Ukrainian war. I think this one is pretty obvious. The people who have been saying that Charlie Kirk needs to die for years and hating Charlie Kirk for the positions he was espousing when he was shot him. Like, I get it. Again, it is a conspiracy, guys. I'm not telling you it isn't a conspiracy. It's absolutely a conspiracy. I just think it's a conspiracy of people who, like, were doing it because they believed what they've been saying for many years.
Yeah.
Manayud says, Kirk was a good man. He was a God-fearing American, and this, I call him a brother. The time is not for infighting. Yeah, we are all Charlie. And I'll say this. So I think it was a day or two ago, I saw somebody who has been very uncharitable to me and has been yelling about the woke right and the dangers of power and all this stuff. And he was complaining that, look at how dangerous it is now for conservatives. And of course he's right. But, the whole time, guys like me and Kevin have been saying, no, you need to understand what's coming. You need to know what time it is. You need to understand that we need to, exercise power. And these people have been attacking us as crazy and leftist for doing so. And I snapped off oh, can we do something now? Is it okay now? Or is it too left wing? And, everything about that is true. Right. But I ended up deleting the tweet. And the reason I deleted the tweet is very simple. This is not about minor beefs right now. This is not about, one-upping your opponents and showing who was right or wrong. And I told you so. I mean, yes, there are correct arguments, and I'm happy to make them, and it's worth pointing them out. But I don't want this to be a moment where we are using this to try to position ourselves. The important part right now is that Charlie Kirk is dead and that his children do not have a father and his wife is grieving him. Like, that's what matters. And what matters is he died in the service of Christ in this country. And that's what matters. And it doesn't mean that we don't have to shut up the squishes at some point when things need to get done. But I don't want to be responsible for using Charlie Kirk's death to, like, hash out some kind of internecine warfare personally. So as long as you are on the side of making sure that justice comes for Charlie Kirk, you're on my side right now. And that's all that matters.
Incredibly clarifying to see where people's guns are pointed right now.
Right.
Yes.
All right, here. Creeper Weirdo says, the conspiracy theories around Kirk's assassination irritate me. It's a bunch of distractions and waste of time, energy on stupid hyperfixation. Yeah, again, I want to be clear. There is a conspiracy theory. If it feels, there is a conspiracy. If it feels like a conspiracy, it is a conspiracy. It was a conspiracy that was funded by foreign actors. It was a conspiracy where money was funneled through NGOs into this country, where people were radicalized with the intention of getting people murdered, where they organized online in protected spaces meant to facilitate their radicalization, and they worked together to generate this assassination. It is a conspiracy, but I just don't think it's Israel. I don't think it's Ukraine. I don't think it's Qatar. Like, sorry guys, I don't. Like, I get it. Israel, whatever. Okay. Yeah. I don't like a lot of what Israel does either, but also be a human being. Okay. Like, just for 10 seconds, maybe this isn't about you and your personal political hobby horse and, like, the thing that you've been trained like a monkey to point to every time something goes wrong. Maybe this time it's just crazy leftists work together because they hate you and they want to kill you. And that's the actual conspiracy involved. Let's see here. Randall says, Kaput Jurat Lupinum, may his be a wolf's head. Sorry, I'm not super familiar with that reference, but appreciate the super chat. Super Joe's Midlife Crisis says, will nationalization of academia work? David Distribia suggested this on Charlie Kirk's stream, and I've been pondering the effectiveness of this idea. I mean, we just need to dismantle the universities. And guess who said that? Charlie Kirk. Like, Charlie Kirk said straight up, he spends all of his time on university campuses. And in his interview with Doug Wilson, one of his last ones, he said, yeah, they can't be saved. We have to dismantle the entire network piece by piece. The entire network of academia has to go.
There's no, these are personnel problems. These are not policy problems. You can't tell people who went to leftist, grade schools and then leftist colleges and then got hired by a leftist HR manager and who have been leftists in their positions the whole time, hey, you're not allowed to say the word gay. Like they're not going to listen to you. They don't value your authority. They don't think it's legitimate. And their attitude toward what needs to happen for these kids, agree or disagree, is sincerely felt, and they don't. That's more important to them than whatever toothless penalty you ascribe to that. And they'll find another way. They'll find a loophole. You have to, it's essentially the level of change that happened in Germany in 1946 or Japan. Like you have to completely root these people out and give them other things to do, because you cannot tolerate people who hold this. It's not expressions or shibboleths or articulations of the ideology. You can't tolerate the people who hold those ideologies being in positions of responsibility.
Yeah, there's many people have, as you referenced there, the denazification of Germany or Japan post World War II. You need to run that program in reverse on the left, right? Like that has to be what happens here if you want to unseat this ideology, and people have to simply get understand that's where you're at. Their half measures will not get you there. Thirstworm says JD and Miller are saying good things, but their priorities will crash against the shore of anti-Semitism resolutions and most Isley Cantina judges. Look, I understand that we have all seen Republicans fail so many times that the frankly correct answer is to be cynical and to be doubtful. I'm with you in many ways. But at the same time, if you declare your defeat beforehand, you are allowing and creating the pathway for it, right? I want you to hear this very clearly and very carefully. There is a wisdom in knowing the failures that your movement has had previously, the fact that it has not been sufficiently committed to the correct terms, and pushing for those things and not blindly expecting these people to do them. However, there is another form of this, the nothing other happens ideology. That is an ideology of defeat. I want to be right more than I want to win. Well, guess what? Sometimes winning means not making the safe prediction. In fact, most of the time, winning means saying I'm doing the impossible. So yes, are we up against the impossible? Absolutely. Now get it together and make it happen. I don't want to hear excuses. Yeah, they're going to use the anti-Semitism resolution. That just tells me you're bad at judo. Because you know what you should be doing? Hey, if you can do this for anti-Semitism, you can surely do it for a dead Charlie Kirk. Yeah. Oh, look, I solved your problem. If we can end left-wing violence on campuses for Israel, we can certainly do it for the United States of America. Look, I just took your rhetoric and I spun it around. So stop complaining to me about how this can't get done, and get it done. Okay? I hear you. I don't trust any of these people farther than I can throw them. So I'm going to throw them. Okay? It's that simple.
The tech right has a saying, pessimists sound smart and optimists make $1 billion.
That's right. Yeah. Manayud says, I think about Kirk's kids and my heart breaks a little bit more. Hug a loved one, friends, because the Lord can call us home at any time. Pray for peace. Yeah, once again, of course, the center of this tragedy is not advancing anyone's political positions. It is the loss of Charlie Kirk and what his family are now going through. So absolutely center yourself, love your family, and find God. Find God, because you never know when that moment is coming. You may think you have forever and you don't. So take the time, do what Charlie Kirk wanted you to do, find Christ, take this moment. And if you are not in a relationship with Christ, you need to be in one. And if you are not talking to your family or you're isolated, you need to dig into community. You need to connect with people. Do not sit alone during this time. Do not sit alone and angry during this time.
Absolutely.
Cripper Weirder says, so bring back dark MAGA memes. Is it time? No, in this case, I think we need the white hat memes. I want justice for Charlie Kirk. I want righteous justice for Charlie Kirk through the state, through the magistrate as righteous arbiters of what should be coming for these people, not as people acting outside the law.
Yeah, I know and like the dark MAGA guys, and I don't think that this is I don't think these positions are exclusive, but but what
I'm
I
just
would
saying
say,
optically. Yeah.
yeah. No, totally. But what I've been thinking about is if you want our side to act effectively and in concert, the biggest weapon that the enemy had over the prior generation of people like us was being able to genuinely inculcate in people's hearts that they were bad people for believing the things that they believe. And what has to change is we have got to recognize and believe in our guts, in our bones, that we're the good guys, and that the world we are building is a better world. And there are short-term respects in which there are zero-sum conflicts, there are battles to be fought. But the world will be better if we win for everyone. We are, the stones of the field. We're in league with the stones of the field, right? We are on nature's side. We are on the side of reality. We're on the side of truth. And I think there's value in the edgy optics at a certain point to kind of break people of the habit of mind of cringing constantly and seeking approval. I think we've grown past it. I think it's time for us to say, like, no, actually, I'm the guy who has a wife and kids, and I live in a beautiful place, and I live around beautiful people, and we have civilization, and we're trying to protect it. We're trying to keep it safe, and we're trying to save our country. I think you're absolutely right. That's what's called for now.
It's time to be righteous and normal. It's time.
Because you are. Because you are, and you always have been.
Yes, that's exactly right. Carl Johansson says the public usually rejects violence, so doing nothing here might be the best move. Look at BLM. Sometimes doing nothing is the best policy. Your thoughts? So I hear what you're saying, but what happened after BLM is Joe Biden took power, and everyone was thrown in jail, and our border was thrown open. So yes, I think people in general are uncomfortable with violence. I do think there is a point at which too much violence does create a call from the public for action, but this is the time. This is the call for action. I think if we just let this sail by, the left will cover their butts. They'll pretend like they are calling for peace for a few months, and they'll be right back where they started, just like they were with Trump. The public didn't like the assassination of Trump. I think it did help him win the landslide victory that he did. But if this is not locked in, if those gains aren't made, if there's not systemic changes that come with the public opinion means nothing. If there's nothing you have learned from my show, please remember, public opinion is fickle and can be completely manipulated by the people in charge. It's not that it doesn't matter, but that it is a mercurial thing that you must seize the moment on when it's with you. And so we must seize the moment now. Now is not the time to sit back and let public opinion drive the politics a certain direction. No, public opinion is with us. And so we act swiftly with the maximum legal force that can be leveraged in this moment.
By way of analogy, and this sort of draws the distinction between, Curtis Yarvin was just talking about the distinction between force and violence.
Yes.
And you can take this for what it's worth. I don't love the CCP any more than anybody, but one of the things they did that I thought was really smart during the Hong Kong protests was they didn't shoot protesters. They didn't, beat them up with billy clubs. They sprayed them with blue paint and followed them home. They absorbed the battering, the violence of the protest. And then, a week and a half later, you got a knock on the door in the middle of the night. He went to jail, and it was clean, and it was quick, and it was low drama, and it was low media footprint. And I think that very, very similar things can happen here. You know, again, these surveillance tools exist. You may hate them. You may think they shouldn't exist. They exist. They're here, and they can either be used for pro-civilizational ends or left in the hands of the anti-civilizational people who currently operate them.
Baked potatoes. It hurts to hear. It hurt to hear, but Sam Hyde's take on the Constitution in his video has resonated with me, and I think more people will follow. Look, I don't know if you're new to this channel, but Sam Hyde's take on the Constitution is exactly, it's not novel around here. I wouldn't have phrased it the way that Sam Hyde phrased it in that video, but obviously I am not here saying be super precious and just wave around your constitutional rights and they will protect you. Obviously, I wrote literally an entire book on this subject, so I hear you. We're not arguing for just run up and tell them you've got the right to free speech and it'll be just fine. We're telling you just when you bring the hammer on these guys, and you should crush them to pieces. When you bring the hammer, make sure to wrap it in law. That's all. That's all we're saying.
When Sam talked about dear Grok, would it be helpful to to wave the Constitution in front of people in South Africa who are trying to boil you alive in your bathtub? That was just one of the funniest bits I've ever heard. The Constitution, the value and the beauty, and the thing that we should cling to, I think, is the spirit of freedom that it created. I mean, it existed as a religion in the minds of the people who ran the country for a while. That was the value of the Constitution. That's what it bought us, right?
Yes.
Was people felt constrained by custom and by social pressure and by sincere belief to limit their exercise of legitimate power. And that led to a lot of cultural flowering and a lot of good things and a lot of beauty. And that's all still real. But the Constitution does not live in the hearts of our rulers anymore. And it does not defend itself. And so, yeah, you have to, it was always intended to bind the state and not the people. And now the people are trying to get some things done with the state, and they can't allow it to bind them. They have to do what needs to happen.
Constitutions, as you point out, are in the hearts of people. They might be reflected on paper at some point, but there is no such thing as a paper constitution. That is just something that is written down, and if it's not in the hearts of the people, it does not matter. So that's what constitutions are, and that's how they work, and they don't work any other way.
That's right.
Freelancer says it's very Jobian how God took Charlie away from his family and all of us when he was at his best, when he was the best of us. Job 121 right there. Job 38:41 is his answer. Again, I certainly don't want to dwell on this too often, but having, lost, immediate family members, I'll just say that that is a abyss to stare into, most certainly, and the questions are always heavy, but the answer is always that God created the world and the order under which you live, and is ordering those things for good in ways that you don't understand. And that doesn't make it easier, and it doesn't mean that your grief or anger is in any way invalid or less, but it does mean that with faith in God, you can make it through any of these things.
And Job 38:41, I believe, is though the worms destroy my flesh, in the flesh I'll see God. And I think that is the answer.
Society Man says, just a friendly reminder that the Civil Rights Act explicitly makes an exemption for communists. Good, important thing to know. Chan the Man says, would like to see a video on Christian conversion. I mean, I've certainly talked about Christianity and Christian conversions. You'd have to be a little more specific, but could be an interesting topic if you want to give me a little more on that. Cinder Brundlefly says, when our Lord entered the temple and found it polluted by money changers and beasts, did he ask them to leave? Did he cry? Did he simply walk away? No, he drove them out. And yes, of course, the point is we're not going to be cowering in front of this. We're not going to be saying, oh, how could you? You violated the Lord's law. No, we'll be driving this out, and we'll be driving it out with righteous authority. In this case, through hopefully the Trump administration. This is one of the beauties of being in power, guys. Sometimes elections don't matter. This time they could. So let's make it matter, and let's not have any excuses about it. All right, guys, we're going to go ahead and wrap this up. As always, it's a pleasure speaking with Kevin. Thank you so much for coming on, and everybody make sure to check out his work and Exit. If it's your first time here, of course, please subscribe to the Auron MacIntyre Show on your favorite podcast platform. And if you do, make sure to subscribe on YouTube and your favorite podcast platform. If you do, leave a rating or a review. It really helps with the algorithm. Thank you, everybody, for watching. And as always, I will talk to you next time.